Hi, this is Phil, and I'm here to tell you all about the Capes and Lunatics Patreon. Get early access to all of our interviews, including the monthly Chichester chats with writer and comic book legend D.G. Chichester, new episodes of classic Capes and Lunatics shows, including The Quantum Zone, This, That, or the Third, and many, many more specials, all completely uncensored. Access starts for $3 a month, full video when you pledge $5 a month. Check out the link in our show notes or go to patreon.com/CapesandLunatics. Hope to see you there.
Hello, everybody. This is Dianne.
And this is Marnell. And this is take 2
of the Real Housewives of Alaska.
Oh, we gotta power through this. The internet gremlins are strong tonight.
Yes, that's a good way to put it. Oh my God. So we're hoping that the sound is good. We're hoping that the sound holds out. And here we go. So Marn, what are we podcasting tonight?
We are podcasting the theatrical release of the play Hamilton.
Yeah, so we're podcasting the Disney Plus release of Hamilton.
Yeah. Did it not come to theater for you? I think they had it in theaters here.
Oh, did they really?
You have seen it on stage, though, right?
I actually did get to see it as a stage production, yes.
I am jealous of that.
It was really good. It was a secondary cast. It obviously wasn't the Broadway cast, but it was still really good.
It was a traveling cast, I would assume.
Yeah, totally.
Which I actually hear, like, the traveling cast for shows is actually sometimes better because, like, they're more enthusiastic. Just they're in a new place every week and, like, new people and, you know, it's fun to travel. And so, yeah, I hear the traveling crew is pretty fun.
You know, it was a really good production. It certainly wasn't Lin-Manuel Miranda, but it was a good production. So I'm glad that we spent the money.
Juno got Chicago, so I went and saw that. Yeah.
Okay. Which I have never seen, actually. So,
like, you've never seen, like, even the movie?
Nope.
Future podcast episode.
What, you're getting me back for the musical? You picked it.
I did. Can you believe that I picked this?
No, I was kind of surprised.
So kind of our choices were like Civil War, Hamilton, and then a documentary about Andrew Tate, which we still may do. Just because he's a horrendous person and you must know about him.
He sounds like it. They talked about him a little bit on, I want to say, the Bulwark podcast that I've been listening to. And he sounds pretty horrific.
Yeah. So this was not as horrific as I initially complained about.
Yay!
I know. I was the one that suggested this because it was like, you know, politically relevant. And
you know I love it.
Yes, you love it. And so if you hear, I have an extra dog, so if you hear extra dogs, it's me. So I started watching it and I did not realize that it was like a musical that sings all of the lines. Like,
Because that's what most musicals are, actually.
Not really. Not in my experience. Chicago's isn't. But yeah. So not my favorite, but definitely improved in the second act and upon the rewatch.
That's so interesting because I actually feel like the first act is faster and more engaging than the second act.
Huh. But I liked the first act and of course the second act, but I liked the first act more on the rewatch. Like, I don't know why I just couldn't get into it. Maybe I was just hung up on the whole musical sings all of the lines aspect.
Oh my God, all they're doing is singing.
It's really hard for me to focus. Like, it's hard for me. And like, there's a lot going on. And even Lin-Manuel says that, like, you know, it is something where there is a ton of stuff going on stage at all times. So, yeah.
And you have to understand. So I have watched the Disney production now twice. I saw it in the theaters and I listened to the musical version ad nauseum in 2020 and 2021. So
how does that work? Is it just the main because like they sing all the way through? You're not listening to 2.5 hours of singing, are you? It's just
you are.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. I thought it was just going to be the big songs like I'm Not Throwing Away My Shot or Burn or, you know, not like the entire dialogue.
It's the whole story.
Oh my God. You lost me on that one. That's crazy.
That's really funny. No, the soundtrack is the entire soundtrack.
So you must have this movie committed to memory then.
I wouldn't say I have it committed to memory, but I can sing along with every song.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It does have some very iconic songs though, so I will give you that. It
definitely does.
Yeah.
So go ahead and give me your rating then, and I'll give you mine.
So
I know yours isn't going to be as high as mine is, so it's okay.
Mine is not going to be as high, but mine is definitely not as low as it was at the beginning of the week or even yesterday, because I have to admit I did finish my rewatch like 10 minutes before we started.
And then it took us like 20 minutes to get the audio up and running.
Yes. Hopefully it stays up and running. So I gave it a 7.2 Bastard Orphaned Sons of Whores.
Very good. Iconic line. I gave it a 9.97 out of 10 Burnt Love Letters and Duels Fought.
Oof. Men in their pride.
And men in their hubris, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess they didn't have cable back then, so you gotta do something to entertain yourself. Screw each other and off each other. That's
there you
what
go.
we do without cable.
We kind of do a version of that with cable, actually.
Social media, yeah, definitely.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, so just a little bit about Hamilton. It premiered in January of 2015 in the Public Theater in New York. And it quickly went to Broadway. It went to Broadway in 2015 as well. It has won numerous awards, but it won 3 Tonys, a Grammy, and the Pulitzer Prize for Drama.
Wow.
Which I thought was super cool. So Lin-Manuel Miranda is a Pulitzer Prize winner.
Not shocking.
Not shocking at all. He's a really talented guy.
I did, aside from the whole musical thing, I watched this in awe of like, there's something really difficult already about having to write about true events and make it entertaining, then put it on a stage for 2.5 hours. Oh, and guess what? We're going to be singing the entire time. Like I am in awe about that.
So what's really crazy is I watched a thing that they have on Disney that's a reunion of the cast in 2020 when they released this onto Disney, because this is actually a recording of the play that was done in 2016. Mm-hmm. And Robin Roberts, who I think she is a news host for CBS. She may be with NBC. I don't know. I don't know the big networks anymore.
She's a 3-letter anchor.
She is, exactly. So she interviewed several members of the main cast, including Lin-Manuel Miranda, of course. And he said that he read the book that was the source material, which is a book by a guy named Ron Chernow. The book is called Alexander Hamilton. And by the second chapter, he could hear it as music in his head.
That is a certain kind of genius.
Yeah. And I have got to tell you, it's a special kind of genius because I thought, oh, I'm really lame. I have had a sample of this book on my Kindle for quite a while, so I should probably go back and try to read it. And I am partway through chapter 1, and I cannot hear it as music in my head.
I have about 4 books started and unfinished. The one I'm listening to right now is one that you actually recommend. Everything Trump Touches Die.
Oh, with Rick Wilson. Yes.
Yes. He needs to update it. Like, I would love to hear his take. I think it was written in 2018 or 2019. I would love to hear.
He has a second book that he wrote before Trump ran a second time called Running Against the Devil.
That's right. Yeah. Yep.
But nothing up to date other than the stuff that he's been doing with the Lincoln Project and he's pretty active on Threads on social media.
Dude just needs a podcast. We've all got one.
He actually podcasts with Molly Jong-Fast.
Oh.
So.
Huh. I will have to check that out.
He shows up on Fast Politics every now and then.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to Hamilton, because we're going to talk politics because this is political.
Of course.
So just a little tiny bit about Lin-Manuel Miranda, who obviously was the composer and the lead actor. So in his IMDb, he's got 41 actor credits, 12 composer credits, and 13 music department credits. But here's the kind of cool stuff. He's got tons of small uncredited roles. Like, he has a little tiny role in the last episode of Star Wars, Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. He's an uncredited soldier.
It makes you wonder if he's just like when you get a call from Lucasfilms, you answer it. Like,
oh, totally. He was like, I'm Lin-Manuel Miranda, and I'd like to play a soldier in your movie. Could I please? Right. And they were like, of course.
That reminds me of Trey Parker and Matt Stone from South Park when whenever some big celebrities request to be on South Park, they always make them like Jerry Seinfeld was so appalled that they wanted to make him turkey number 4.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
He was just going to be like, gobble, and it's like Jerry Seinfeld's like, do you know who I am? And George Clooney is one of the kids' dog. So George Clooney just barks through the entire episode. So I love it when I love it when people have a sense of humor like that. And then I love Lin-Manuel's sense of humor of like, I don't need to be the star. I can be like the voice of droid number 4, Right.
Totally.
Yeah. Soldier number 2.
So I don't know a lot of his other stuff. I'll be really honest with you. I recognized some of it. Like I heard about when In the Heights was coming out. I have not seen it. I've not watched it. I never watched Encanto, Disney's Encanto, but he was a composer for that. He composed some of the songs for Moana. He composed some new songs for the 2023 production of Little Mermaid.
Oh.
So he's done tons of stuff. The only other thing I'm embarrassed to say that I've seen him in, and I'm embarrassed to say I've only seen him in one other thing just because I'm such a huge Hamilton fan. He was in Percy Jackson and the Olympians. Have you seen that?
Yes. Who was he?
He played Hermes, the messenger god.
Huh. Kind of makes me want to go back and rewatch it.
The series, not the movie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the new series that just came out.
Interesting.
I think we're both going to have dogs participating tonight because Koba is sitting over here whining at me. So.
Can't hear it.
That's good.
So when I looked at his filmography, the first thing that came up for me was WWE SmackDown. He was an audience member.
Me too. Me too.
Oh, that's funny. I love that audience members get credited.
Right. I guess when it's somebody like Lin-Manuel Miranda, they're going to, right?
Right.
Then I found out a little bit about Thomas Kail, who was the director of this particular production. He, again, was someone that I had not heard of or had not seen much of the other. I haven't seen any of the other stuff that he's done, actually. So I recognized Two Broke Girls. He was a director for that. You're smiling. Have you watched it?
I have not watched it. It's been on the list for a while. But yeah, I haven't watched it. I see clips all the time.
All right. And then he directed an Oprah special, which of course everybody knows who Oprah is. He was a producer director on Grease Live. So I'm assuming that was a live production of Grease that was shown on a television station. He was a producer, director, writer on Fosse Verdon, which is... I know that Fosse was a famous dancer. That's about all I know about that. I'm showing how uncultured I am right now. And
I only know that because of Birdcage.
Right? Same. Same. So we're both showing how uncultured we are.
Or incredibly cultured, because Birdcage is a wonderful movie.
That is true. That is very true. It would be fun to watch that and see if it's held up. I bet it has.
It has. It totally has.
Oh, that's awesome. Yep. So Thomas Kail overall has 12 producer credits, 10 director credits, and 2 writer credits. And that's what I've got for the writer, director, producer. I am going to be shameless right now and open up IMDb because I didn't write anything down about Jonathan Groff after we talked about him. So
I have plenty to say about Jonathan Groff. So
okay, go ahead and start.
I apologize for choosing like the only white guy in the cast of all of the characters. Like there are so many great characters in this movie that we could have done, but the reason why I did Jonathan Groff is because I love Netflix's Mindhunter, and that for me, that is the movie that put him on the map. Other things that he has been in that a lot of people know him from is he is Kristoff in Frozen. He's the voice of Kristoff. And you know him from Glee.
Yes. Where he plays kind of a bad guy.
Did you know that he's got like a really big scar on his bicep from Glee?
No, what happened?
They were doing a number and one of the female cast members caught him on the arm with her stiletto and like ripped a big hole in his bicep.
Ow.
Yeah, like of all of the roles he has played, like Glee was the dangerous one.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
There's also an HBO comedy drama called Looking that I have not watched, but it looks okay. But yeah, I think that's kind of mostly what a lot of people know him for. He's got plenty of other acting credits. But the thing that I have found so interesting about him is he just won a Tony Award at the 77th annual Tonys. He does a lot of stage acting. So his Tony Award was for Merrily We Roll Along. And I have this giant thing that I wrote from his speech. I saw his acceptance speech for the Tonys on TikTok, and it was so touching. So first of all, you have to realize that he grew up in Amish country. He grew up
Oh, how interesting.
Lancaster, Pennsylvania. He is gay, and his father was Mennonite. His mother was Methodist, and that is how he was raised. And in his acceptance speech, he said, I grew up in a house surrounded by cornfields in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I was raised by my parents, Jim and Julie Groff, and my brother David, and they were in the audience. Thank you for letting me dress like Mary Poppins when I was 3. Thank you for letting me act out scenes from I Love Lucy on my 10th birthday. Thank you for always allowing my freak flag to fly without ever making me feel weird about it. Even if they didn't always understand me, my family knows the life-saving power of fanning the flames of a young person's passion without judgment. I walked through life with an open heart because you let me know that I could. Thank you. I love you. That was only like the first third of the speech, but like that was like the most poignant thing in the speech. And like to know that his family had to be just so conservative, and they had this little boy who acted as Dorothy. He put on stage plays in their barn, and he was Dorothy from Wizard of Oz.
Oh, that's awesome.
Famous gay icon, you know? And it just must have been so hard for him in life, but his family was always so accepting of him that he is who he is now. And I think that's amazing. And I love that he pointed out that it was life-saving for him.
Yeah.
You know, and he was that way from a young age. You know, he was dressing as Mary Poppins at 3 years old, you know? So I just, that is just so amazing to me that his family, you know, like, and I'm so happy that they were in the audience when he won his Tony Award. So I thought that was super cool. Yeah, I didn't have too much more about him other than that. Just because he, like, that just to me was so touching to me. One of the things he only has, I think it's 4 scenes in Hamilton, and they're roughly like maybe 9 minutes long each. So he has less than 40 minutes of screen time or stage time in the 2.5 hours. So what does he do when he's hanging out backstage, not being on stage? He gets the privilege of meeting the fans of the show from all walks of life, such as Barack Obama, Michelle Obama, Dick Cheney, Paul McCartney, Jennifer Lopez, Lupita Nyong'o, Busta Rhymes, Weird Al Yankovic, and Common. Like, he
That's
just gets to hang
cool.
out with celebrities backstage. Well, he's not being the funniest character in the show. I can't believe he's still not doing it still. Like, he's no longer doing the stage acting for the cast. He's moved on, which, you know, is great for him, but like, just what a cool experience.
Yeah. That reminds me, and I have to tell you this before I lose my train of thought about it. So I was asking Rob what the style of rapping that Hamilton does is called, and he said it's called spitting, and it's based on Eminem. And Lin-Manuel Miranda chose that because he wanted people to know how intelligent Hamilton was, which I think is a real commentary on how he feels about Eminem and his music. Hercules Mulligan is based on Busta Rhymes. And George Washington's character is based on a combination of Common and John Legend.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So I did hear that the song "You'll Be Back" Lin-Manuel was talking to his very good friend Hugh Laurie from House. Excellent. Yes, and he was like kind of trying to figure out like, what would King George III say? Like, you know, like what would his feelings be in like the private moments or whatever? And Hugh Laurie wagged his finger at him and said, "You'll be back." And Lin-Manuel was like, "That's it." Like, and so that's the famous.
That's how that number was born.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's so catchy. Like, I see it all the time on TikTok. Like, You can sing the words to the entire thing, but I can sing all of the words to King
You'll
George's.
be back.
Yeah, like, I love it. He's just so sassy on stage. Like that's why I picked him. Is like and what's funny is I missed it the first time around when I talked to you, and I was like, I'm an hour in and I'm waiting for this scene, and you're like, that was a while ago. You're right.
Yeah.
It's like in the first 15 minutes, I missed it completely. In my defense, I have that staying with me. So, he's
Poor
3 years
guy.
old. He's 3 years old and he's 90 pounds, and my husky doesn't like him.
Because he's 3 years old and he weighs 90 pounds. That's why Dexter doesn't like him.
Yeah. Thankfully, I have a king bed because I have about 250 pounds of dog in my bed at any one time.
I've got about 50 pounds of dog in my bed when they're both in there. And that's enough. Never thought you'd hear me say that.
Pounds. One's like 3 pounds. The other one's just like a super chunk.
Right. Well, anything else about Jonathan Groff?
No, not really. I think we'll talk about his character a little, but yeah.
The only thing that I would add is that I recognize a couple of things that he was in. I mean, obviously I recognize Frozen, although never seen it, or Frozen 2, because I don't have kids.
Oh, his next movie that he's coming out with, Frozen 3.
Oh my God. Don't get me started. I went and saw Despicable Me 4.
Oh.
The one with the Minions. That's Despicable Me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I hadn't seen 1, 2, and 3, but I went and saw 4 with the husband and the stepkids the other night.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think I've seen 3 either. Not a big in theater kids movie fan. There was one recently where I wanted to see it and I was like, nah, I'll wait for streaming.
Okay, I'm totally opening the door to let the dogs out. That is how low we've sunk in our podcasting lives right now, because they are just having a fit and I don't know why. Please go and don't come back. At least not for a while. Good God. I'm not wagging my finger at them saying you'll be back. Well, on that note, do we have any housekeeping? Housewives housekeeping?
I do not.
I have a little bit, and it's kind of whiny. I threw my back out 2 weeks ago, and it's still a mess. So if I am fidgeting a lot and shifting a lot, it's just because my back is really not happy right now. So sitting in a chair is, it's probably why I sound tired too, because I'm still dealing with this horrible back thing. Oh yeah, and since the last time we talked, I got married, and we saw each other.
That. Yeah.
there's those small things. Marnell was in my wedding.
If you hadn't have been getting married and had other things on your mind, we could have podcasted together, but
in the same room. But I kind of had other stuff going on.
Yeah, just a little bit.
We
were steaming groomsmen shirts.
I still have the steamer.
Oh my God! You literally have it right there. That's hilarious.
Because that's where Chuck left it.
I bought a green one. I forget who I was talking to the other day, but because I brought an enormous bag for a 4-day trip to your house, because I brought my entire Dyson setup, my Dyson Airwrap setup, all my makeup, I didn't decant anything, I had my big bottles of everything. I brought a steamer, and thank God I did, because everybody needed to use it.
And you know what? Oh, go ahead.
I was telling somebody the other day that they were like, "You brought a steamer with you to for a 4-day trip in Anchorage," and I'm like, I mean, it was the most used item, and I left it there, and now my sister has a steamer.
And the funny thing is, I said, I'm sure as soon as this is all over, I will find my iron. I found my iron a couple of nights ago.
God, it's amazing the shit we accumulate over time.
Oh my God. Rob was saying that if we ever do consolidate households, that we'll have to both massively purge, which is very true.
You like that may need to be the time I take off. Like I take a week off and come to Marie Kondo. Yeah.
I don't know. I think I need Marie Kondo 1.0 and 2.0.
Yeah. It's funny. So I am currently looking for a place to buy also. And I met with a realtor about 2 weeks ago, and I look at all of these houses online, and I've been looking for a while, so I've seen a ton come and go because the market is just on fire here. And so I always try and imagine myself in the space. I get pretty connected to some houses, and then I log on the next day and it says pending sale, and I get disappointed all over again. So that's super fun. But my realtor asked me, she's like, is there anywhere in town that you don't want to live? Because we have Douglas Island. A lot of people don't like to live there because they think it doesn't get a lot of sun. And, you've got Lemon Creek, which there's great neighborhoods in Lemon Creek. And then we have way out towards the end of the road at Tea Harbor, and then the other end of the road thing. Do you not want to live in any of those places? I was like, for the right property, I would pretty much live anywhere. So no, nothing's off the table. And then I don't know if people have seen it in the national news. We did make a couple of blips, but we have a yokalump at our glacier, and it is a basin that has a frozen dam every year, and this basin fills up with melted snow and rainwater and everything, and it releases. And last year everyone saw a bunch of houses collapse into the river, and this year they would have seen a ton of flooding hit the neighborhoods. And so on Monday I was texting my realtor, and I was like, I would like to revise my statement about where I do and don't want to live. I was like, I don't want to live anywhere west of this street because that's where all the flooding happened. And so I get a lot of people who, I live in Juneau. Juneau just flooded. I was nowhere near the flooding, thank God. My house was nowhere near being touched, but we did have a lot of people who, I would say they were displaced, but everybody has gone back into their home and ripped out all their carpet and razored their drywall up 2 feet and pulled out all the fiberglass stuff, insulation.
I was going to say, you've got me, the fiberglass stuff.
The insulation in their houses, and we're drying out. So, but yeah, I have revised where I do and don't want to live in town because of that. So, but yeah, I can't wait to move into my own place and start setting up how I want it.
I think I finally found someone to repair my ceiling. And then I think I'm going to paint after that's all done. Really paint, including finishing the area that needed to be repainted that you saw.
Adventures in homeownership.
Oh my God. I'm so tired of it. I'm tired of it already.
I completely understand why people buy condominiums. I always used to be like, God, no, why would anyone buy a condominium? Because you don't really own your house, you can't paint the outside any color. And sometimes they have restrictions that your curtains have to be a certain shade of color or whatever. You can only have 2 cars, and why would you? And I've been, since my search for a house, I kind of have to eliminate a lot of the condos around here because there's, size restrictions and the number of pets restrictions. And, I have 2 large dogs, sometimes 3. But when it comes to having to fix crap and take care of the lawn and the snow removal, I'm like, okay, I'll pay a couple extra $100 a month if somebody does that for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I completely understand. Like, especially as our bodies are getting old and we throw out our back and we still have lawns to mow. It's like,
I legit have not vacuumed my stairs in weeks because of my back. So,
see, JD Vance is right. Us miserable old cat ladies. Although we're dog ladies, but yeah.
Well, but now it's the postmenopausal posse that's coming after him.
Yep.
You've seen that on social media today.
The only thing that we are good for is taking care of our grandchildren.
Yes.
I mean, I would have had to have had children first. So, I mean, that's completely out of the question at this point. So,
it's not entirely out of the question for me now because I have stepchildren, but it's a ways off.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully.
So I have a lot of living to do before I'm taking care of grandchildren.
Yeah. No. No, thanks.
That brings us to the news. So a little bit of news has happened since the last time we podcasted as well.
Oh, really? Like what?
Oh, I don't know. Like the complete recovery of hope and joy in America.
I literally went from, like, I was packing my bag after your wedding, after he was shot in the ear, and I was like, this is it. Like, it's like I was in tears because I was like, this is going to be the Handmaid's Tale from now on. Like, and I don't mean like we all joke about like, oh, haha, you know, I'm not going to be a Martha. I'm too mouthy for that. I'm going to get sent to the colonies. I mean that like they're going to roll back our rights to the point that like I'm looking at buying a house. I may not be able to own property by this time next year. You know, like, should I be putting my money into buying a house right now, or should I be renewing my passport so I can get the fuck out, you know? And
I think you should have both contingency plans.
Right. And then the other news was announced, and I was like, okay, I think we can do this.
So I was listening to a little older episode of a podcast with a guy named Tim Miller, who he is on the Bulwark podcast, and he is a never Trumper Republican. And I can't remember the name of the podcast right now, but the other podcast that he's on. But they were talking about, it was Monday Morning Quarterbacking, about why Josh Shapiro didn't get, or not Josh, Josh Shapiro didn't get chosen.
Yeah.
And
not to be confused with Ben Shapiro. Totally different guy.
Right. Who makes all vaginas dry up immediately. Ben, not Josh.
Yes.
Anyway, it was funny listening to that because within 24 hours of Tim Walz being on the ticket, it's just been revolutionary ever since.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I kind of want to say, like, he's everybody's peepaw, you know, but he's only 60. Like,
right.
He just, like, I feel like he just looks like everybody's peepaw. Because he's only a year older than Harris.
Right.
So, yeah.
He's 6 years older than me.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, it is so strange as a Gen X person to have a presidential and vice presidential ticket that could not be my parents, like that are not old enough to be my parents. Like, what? That, like, I don't think that's ever happened in my life. Like,
if they had started super, 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 super young, maybe.
Oh yeah.
But
yeah, super young. But like, it's just, it's so nice to have people in office who are potentially people in office who are making laws that they will live to either benefit from or suffer from. So they've got a horse in the race. So,
girl, I gotta tell you, I wore my pearls and chucks to the office today. My checks came in the mail last night.
We got the email that was like, just a reminder, as a state employee, please don't do anything political in the office or talk politics or
yes,
no working on campaigns while you're on state time or, you know, like don't. Yeah. So,
Rob got the same email yesterday.
I bought a hoodie and a t-shirt, and they have the Mattel logo, and they are in the Barbie font, and it says Madam President. I love it.
I'm still waiting for a t-shirt. It says, I understand the assignment.
I'm wearing my Capes and Lunatics merch.
Yay! I should have gotten out my Capes and Lunatics merch, but like I told Marn, I changed right into my PJs when I got home and after I'd gotten the garbage out. So here we are.
My PJs are literally right here. I was like, whoop! And just changed into this shirt because my PJs will go right back on after this. This is not right my PJs. On. I do wear this outside of the house, Phil.
As do I. I've worn both my sweatshirt and my t-shirt. Thank you to my sister for getting them for me.
You're welcome.
So,
Diane got Capes and Lunatics merch for her wedding.
And a sister who was my maid of honor. So.
Yes. It was a great wedding.
It was a pretty great wedding. I agree.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, anything else you want to say about the news other than hallelujah and vote, vote, vote?
No, other than like I've gone from utter hopelessness to feeling like it is was it 2012?
2008 was the first time Barack Obama was elected.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I feel like it's 2008 all over again. And I really hope on the 6th of November that we are all dancing in the streets again.
Right. I have some Hillary PTSD. I do.
Yeah. Yep. It's why, it's funny. I've tried to stop calling her Kamala and start calling her Harris. Because calling women politicians by their first names is casual misogyny.
Oh, how interesting. What an interesting take.
It basically sort of infantilizes that, because we don't do that to anybody else. We don't call Obama Barack all the time. We don't go around calling Trump Donald, so why do we do it to women? People did have the plausible excuse with Hillary that, you didn't want to confuse Clinton with Clinton.
Sure.
But when you are, you exist in the context. as Harris would say, you exist in the context.
If you didn't fall out of a coconut tree.
If you are talking about the person running for president right now, and that person happens to be Hillary Clinton, you're not going to confuse that person with Bill. So you can say Clinton. So just try to treat everyone equally.
Interesting. That's a very interesting take. All right. I'm going to disrupt us one more time before we get to our goods, bads, and uglies because, here she comes. I was going to say the other dog has disappeared, but now she is standing at the door going, maybe I want to come in back after all.
Soon you see.
See, now they can't understand why I'm not going into the kitchen and getting them a treat. So they'll just have to wait. All right. Do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first with my good?
I went first with my rating. So do you want me to go first with my good?
Sure.
So my good is, we kind of talked about this a little earlier. I had a hard time keeping my trap shut. This makes me want to learn so much more about all of the people that were involved. This gives people interest in history, just the way that it was presented. It was modern, it was relatable, and it humanized a lot of people in this. And sometimes we forget that these people had real lives and real problems. And, a lot of these people literally fought and nearly died for, the founding of our country. And yet they were so flawed and had affairs. And, I have done so much research around all of the characters in this movie that I would not have done before. And it's kind of important because they don't really teach you a lot of the stuff in social studies or civics or anything like that. They don't go into the depth that this went into. But like, it's so funny how all of these people were kind of related. So 32 years after Aaron Burr killed Alexander Hamilton in a duel, Burr's wife left him. Her divorce attorney was Alexander Hamilton Jr.
Really?
Yes.
He must have taken great joy in that.
Right? And so I don't know if you noticed or if anybody noticed, there were actually 3 Schuyler sisters in the beginning. And then you don't see Peggy much anymore after that first number. And it's because she actually died at the age of 42. And she was a super interesting character. And I think one of my next reads is going to be a book called Hamilton and Peggy, a Revolutionary Friendship. And it's a YA book. It's a young adult book, but it goes into kind of her story because, God, what was the Roosevelt sister that was just like, she couldn't be controlled, like they
Alice. It was the daughter, wasn't it?
Okay.
I thought she was a daughter, but
maybe, yeah. Peggy sounds this way where it was supposedly like super witty because allegedly, Hamilton had an affair with all 3 Schuyler sisters at one point.
Really?
Because all of his writings were burned by his wife after his death, we will never truly know. But the things that did survive suggest that he got around.
Well, Martha Washington named her feral tomcat after him. It's true.
Well, and so, oh God, what was the guy that was shot? Aaron Burr's, no, not Aaron Burr's son. What was his name?
Are you thinking about Philip?
Lawrence?
So Lawrence is the guy who was he is the actor was the same actor who played the son, Philip. Philip was shot in a duel. Lawrence was killed a few days after the war was over as the British forces were retreating.
So, of course, we only know these people from what they wrote and what was written about them. The letters between Lawrence and Hamilton were very affectionate. And so, yes. And there was a third person. There was a third man involved in this where one of the sons liked to call them the gay trio. Now, of course, back then, gay meant something completely different. But they were very affectionate in their writing. And you can look back on that and you can look at that and say, well, men just were more affectionate with each other. They bonded in a different way. Brothers in battle would tell other men that they loved them. And you don't see a lot of that anymore because, so much toxic masculinity. So it's speculated that Hamilton and a few of his male friends were together, but it is also speculated that he was with all 3 Schuyler sisters. And Peggy just sounds like a hoot. So she was the talk of the town. There was nothing really left for her from her own handwriting, but people talked about her often. They called her wicked wit, and she was endowed with a superior mind and a rare accuracy in the judgment of men and things. In 1783, Peggy, then 25, married her distant cousin, Stephen Van Rensselaer, at 19. It was quite a match. Stephen owned 1/40th of the entire land in New York. He is still ranked as one of the richest Americans ever.
Huh.
He went on to found the Rensselaer Polytech Institute. The couple had 3 children. Only one of them lived to adulthood. Sadly, unlike her sisters, Eliza, who lived to 97, Peggy died at 42. So I don't know. I just maybe have a soft spot for her because she was the youngest and she had a wicked wit. And I loved that this movie made me want to learn all about these people and their lives because it's so interesting. It's far more interesting than a Kardashian.
That is so true.
That was my good, was like, I just love that this was such a great telling of the story that I wanted to immerse myself in the rest of it.
Very good.
So what was your good?
Well, I had 2. And the first was that, like any great musical, there was a repetition of themes throughout the music, which I loved. Just sometimes little lines that would come back, like the line where Burr says to Hamilton, "Talk less, smile more."
Mm-hmm.
It comes back later on where Hamilton is talking to Burr and he's like, I should take you at your own advice. Talk less, smile more.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not throwing away my shot comes back repeatedly. Death doesn't discriminate. Love doesn't discriminate. Those are themes that come back repeatedly. Why do you write like you're running out of time? I love the way that the themes are cycled again and again throughout.
Yeah, I love how it was threaded into the story all along.
Mm-hmm.
And it just fit in so many different places. That's why I was like, he's a genius for writing this. Like there is some sort of genius there that I could never even fathom how his mind works to put this real life story on stage and then make it lyrical. Like, it's amazing. There was, I should have screenshotted it. There was a line that Hamilton and Burr said to each other like twice. And it is actually taken from letters they exchanged. And of course I now cannot find it. Darn it.
So that interview that I was talking about that Robin Roberts did with the cast, she
Mm-hmm.
also had an historian in the group that she interviewed as well. And the lady was saying how fascinating it was to hear language from the documents that she had read come back as lyrics in this musical. So,
and this is such a departure from the style of music that is normally used for musicals, to have it be the words from these letters from, the 1800s. Like, yeah, that's pretty cool.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was just going to say my other good was the repurposing of cast members. So, Daveed Diggs played both Lafayette and Jefferson.
Mm-hmm. Which both of those I could not take seriously, and I love him for that.
Yes. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce his name, but the guy who played Hercules Mulligan also played James Madison.
So he is from Nigeria, and his name is Okarieti Onoduwadoan.
I'm impressed.
And he goes by Oak.
I'm very impressed that you got that out. And then, as we said, the guy who played Lawrence also played the Hamilton son, Philip, who was killed in a duel.
Yeah.
And then the young woman who played Peggy also played Mariah Reynolds, the woman that Hamilton was known to have a very scandalous affair with.
And I thought, like I said earlier, he's only got about 40 minutes of stage time, but I thought every once in a while I saw Jonathan Groff singing or dancing as one of the backup dancers in like the all white suit, you know.
Oh, wouldn't that be great?
Yeah, I swear to God, he was threaded in there every once in a while.
That would be pretty great.
Yeah.
So that was my good.
So my bad. And we kind of already talked about it. I do not like the style of musical. It is, for some reason, it's chaotic for my brain. And there are very few musicals that sing the entire way through that I can sit through. I could not sit through Les Mis. I could sit through Sweeney Todd though. But also it's easier to watch it live. So I was trying to watch Les Mis on TV. Then that's why I think I was like, initially I was like, oh my God, what did I do to us watching it? You just love it so much that I was like, I have to get through this. But it's really hard to watch on TV. It's a little easier watching on stage. But yeah, not my preferred style of musical. So, I was really surprised that I started to like it more through the second act. And then on the rewatch, and other than it being 2.5 hours, like I would watch it again. Like if I was with somebody who was like, oh, I've never seen it, I'd be like, oh, you should see it. And I would watch it with them. So yeah, other than my bad was that it's not my preferred style of musical. So it was 2.5 hours.
But you don't feel like it's 2.5 hours of your life you'll never get back.
No, not at all. And honestly, like I said, the second act was much better for me. So like it really, like for some reason, the first hour was really hard for me. The second time I watched it, it wasn't as hard. I think maybe because I knew like there were better things coming, and I also paid a little bit more attention, and saw King George, the scene that I wanted to see. And then there was a couple of songs that I was like, oh, okay, like, all right.
Which,
So
by the way,
bad?
not throwing away my shot, just so you know. There's a really great parody of it, which was done right around the time that the COVID vaccine came out. And it's performed by a bunch of healthcare providers who say that they're not throwing away their shot.
That's right. I do remember that. I don't know if
Yeah.
I sent that to you or you sent that to me.
It was really good. I still remember that.
Yeah.
Well, that's so funny because your bad leads right into mine, which we also already talked about, which for me, the second half was slower. And I'm not sure why. I don't know if it's just because it didn't have the excitement of the Revolutionary War. It didn't have my two favorite characters, Washington and Hercules Mulligan.
It did too. He didn't.
Yeah, I guess
he was in the bar. Yeah.
Yes, it did. Okay.
Yeah, he was in the bar and he was in the war. Yeah.
No, but in the second. Well, I think of the second act as after the intermission. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you're right.
Washington may have been in it because there may have been some cabinet related things.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
But it just didn't have that excitement that the Revolutionary War had for me. So
there were things that I did notice about him in the first half that when I rewatched it, there is this adorable scene when they're doing the wedding. And Hercules, he didn't get to walk anybody down the aisle, but like he does this like little thing at the end. And
and he's the flower girl.
That's right. And he like sticks out his tongue. Like it was just so adorable.
Yeah.
I love him so much.
Yes, he's a great character.
Yeah.
The other thing that was my bad, and this is on me, is that I wish I knew the history better. Yeah. So that's going to make me try to slog through the foundational material for this, which is the book by Ron Chernow. And I mean, I hate to pick on a historian who wrote a book, but damn, it's dry.
Audiobook. I
my problem is I never get through them. I never get through them. I fall asleep. So
there are some times where I can, like, some of my work at work is mindless enough, and I know you don't have, maybe when you're charting, I don't know.
no,
like, probably
I don't
not
have that luxury.
Yeah, no, like a lot of times mine is like, you know, pulling data and formatting spreadsheets and like, yeah. So I have the luxury of being able to do that sometimes when I'm working, listening to podcasts, and then mowing the lawn or taking the dogs for a walk. I can listen to podcasts or audiobooks. So I feel like I have a lot more time to listen. My attention span I have the hardest time unless I am super engrossed in a book. And I think this is one of the reasons why I had a hard time in Act 1 is because I have a hard time, like, with character establishment. Like, you're introducing me to everybody and you're giving me all their backstory and how they all connect to each other and blah, blah, blah. And I just, like, I can't hold that much in my brain all of the time. It's why I couldn't get into Game of Thrones in book form. And it's why I couldn't get into Girl with the Dragon Tattoo in book form, is because there is so much establishment that, I have to, like, it has to be on the screen. I can't, like, books, it can expand upon things way more than movies and television can. And so it's just, they condense it in a much better format on TV. And so, yeah, that's probably why I had a hard time with the first half.
Interesting. Yeah. But by the second half, you knew everybody well enough that you were willing to stick it out.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And on the second watch, like, I like the characters who switched from one person to another, like Lafayette, to John Adams.
To Jefferson.
Jefferson, yes.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't catch that first watch. Like,
I
was not paying close enough attention.
You were like, what the heck's going on with Lafayette? Why is he being all weird all of a sudden?
Yeah, I was like, where did this French accent go? But he still had that swagger and as
Jefferson.
As Jefferson.
Yeah.
So they toasted John Adams in the bar, and I think that's why I keep thinking it. But yeah, so yeah, I loved it. That's what made this movie for me was King George III, David Diggs, is that his name?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Hercules, like all of the characters that were just sassy. Like, there's no other word for it. They were sassy. I loved them.
They were really over the top characters. They were a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So what was your ugly? Was it a good ugly or a bad ugly?
It was a good ugly.
Oh, good.
So my good ugly was the unsung hero of the entire play, the stage. Did you notice that the stage rotated?
So they reproduced that in the production that we saw here in Anchorage.
I loved that.
Yes, touch. It was really great.
Yes, it was like a character unto itself, and it made everything so much more visually interesting when, you know, characters were rotating around each other. That whole scene with the rewind, like it just, there was a time, when, Hamilton's wife was like coming around as, the sister
Angelica.
was leaving. Like, yeah. It just, it was so much more interesting to watch that than it would have been them walking that way.
Yeah.
When the Schuyler sisters were introduced, they were walking, and it was the thing was going around. And so, you know, they were actually walking. It didn't just look like they were walking. So like it made the show. I love it. Like, and from what I read about it, it was initially like, it wasn't approved to do. They were like, no, that's, we're not going to do that. And then they did a rehearsal with it, and it was just like, it made it so much better that they were just like, it's in, you know? And so I always think that set design for stage plays is super interesting anyway, because you have such a minimal amount of area to do something with. And the things that they come up with are so clever with stage set design. I have frequented the local stage theater here. And like, it's so crazy that you can just be in this, like, basically a tiny room. I mean, it's a very large room, but you are telling an entire story that lasts through years and different locations and different weather and all these things. And they accomplish that with some plywood and lighting, you know, like, so I love the stage. I think it's amazing. It was my good ugly.
Well, I have to say on that note, they did a very creditable job with the production that came up here, reproducing that stage.
Cool.
Not just the rotating part of the stage, but also just all of the pieces that were there. It was really quite nice.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm glad that they are able to keep that. And I hope that that is something that they can do at every location, because
I hope so too.
I don't think it would translate as well without that. It was like, it would be like losing a character of the play.
I would imagine that they can do it at our theater. They do it everywhere, that they take the touring company.
Yeah.
Well, my ugly, of course, was also a good ugly.
Good.
And it was my favorite moment, which is Washington's retirement and when he sings One Last Time. And I'm sorry I don't have the actor's name right on the tip of my tongue, because I just love him. He inhabited Washington so well, and I just totally loved the way that he played that character.
Chris Jackson.
Thank you very much. I knew the last name was Jackson. I couldn't remember his first name. And we just saw exactly the same thing happen in our time.
Yep.
With Joe Biden stepping aside.
Yep. For the good of the country.
Yeah. So it brought a great deal of that feeling up when I watched it, that gratitude toward Joe Biden. And it was really interesting the day that Biden announced that he was stepping aside. I'm on Threads. I'm not on Twitter anymore. I dead name it. And
Me too.
and someone actually quoted that song from Hamilton in reference to Joe Biden. And I was like, oh, ouch. But how appropriate.
Yeah.
So that's my ugly is just that particular scene. I really like that.
I kind of made that parallel too while watching it. That it, you know, that moment where he's like, you know, I won't be running against him. I am stepping down, you know, and Hamilton's shock at that. And it, yeah. He did it for kind of a different reason. He is the reason why we only can serve 2 terms, right?
No. So actually it was after Franklin Delano Roosevelt, because Roosevelt actually died in his 4th term. And it was after Roosevelt that term limits were made a thing. Okay.
Because Washington was only president for 8 years. So it's funny that it like kind of makes you wonder if it's like they looked at like kind of the useful life of a president, you know?
I love how King George. Oh, go ahead.
I love how King George did point out where they were like, they're just gonna like have somebody new all of the time.
I didn't realize I could do that. I think Washington was only 50 when he stepped aside, but that was quite old for those times. So,
yeah, I feel like it was, but like so many of our founding fathers were kind of that age. It was funny. I was watching a TikTok the other day where it was a stitch, and it started out, the girl's like, nobody who signed the Declaration of Independence was older than 25. And the guy stitching me was like, there was nobody younger than 27 that signed it. Like most people were in their like, I think it was like late 30s to early 40s, you know? So like, it's funny that like, yeah, people usually did not live that long.
Right.
Certainly not to 97 like Hamilton's
like Eliza.
Wife, but
right.
Yeah,
right.
But, you know, like I feel like the statistics on the lifespan of men back then may have been a little skewed because they were constantly shooting at each other. Their own stupid pride.
Did I tell you on a totally separate but unrelated note that I went to Mount Vernon when Rob and I were back in DC this year?
I think you mentioned it.
It was pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I do want to do some East Coast traveling just because, like, that's where, like, the history of our country is, you know, is like the East Coast. And I would also love to go antiquing over there.
You should go to Gettysburg.
You were saying that. Yeah.
Gettysburg was very cool.
Yeah. And of course, me being the weirdo that I am would be like, I need to do a haunted tour.
We missed our haunted tour because we got into Gettysburg kind of late and someone was a little cranky. So, but we stayed at a haunted inn that night. So.
Do you have anything spooky happen?
No, of course not.
Ghosts were like, he is way too cranky. We're leaving him alone tonight.
Totally. The ghosts were like, no, thank you. No, thank you.
We don't want him to die again.
Have you seen that guy? He's ginormous.
I died violently in war, and that guy would mess me up.
Well, so this takes us to notes, and I don't have tons of notes, but I have a few. And the very first one is that we open up and we meet Aaron Burr, who you and I know as Leslie Odom Jr., who was in Harriet, which we did for Real Housewives a while ago.
That's right. That was such a good movie.
Yeah. And I feel like we haven't mentioned Aaron Burr hardly at all, but Leslie Odom Jr. was great in that role.
Yeah. He definitely was. Like, everyone was so great in their roles that, like, I think it would be hard for me to see it without them in it.
I was actually a little worried about that when I saw the traveling production. I was a little scared that I wasn't going to enjoy it as much because I was so used to this cast.
Yeah.
I'm glad to report that I got over it quickly.
It is different in person. Like theater's so much better in person. But I have to say that I did enjoy this. So because I loved King George III so much in this, like his cackling laughter, like I just,
yes.
Of course, like, because I watched Hamilton videos on TikTok, like I get a ton. And like I said, he's only got like 4 scenes, like, but I keep getting it over and over again. I watched the entire way through. Like, I love it. Like he just looks unhinged. Like he's like his singing, he doesn't blink. He just,
and like the spittle, like every now and then there's like some spittle and it's like, ugh, it's perfect for the character. But
so he and Daniel Radcliffe and Daniel Radcliffe's wife are very, very good friends. I think they are in a play together or were in a play together. But he actually thanks him and Daniel Radcliffe and his wife and we're basically like, you know, we're soulmates, in his Tony Award speech. And, there is a hilarious interview. It looks like Daniel Radcliffe and his wife are interviewing Jonathan. They were asking, how do you stay hydrated? And he kept saying, I get wet. And they were like, no, stop. Like, how do you stay and they were basically asking him about this fiddle that he gets
how
on stage. And he was trying to say that it's because he hydrates so much, but he kept saying that he was getting wet. And
oh my God, that's hilarious.
Hysterical. It was pretty good. Yeah. So because I loved the character so much in this, I did a little research on King George III. One of the longest serving monarchs. He served for 60 years. The last 10 years of his reign, his son, King George IV, took over because, and it actually makes me want to watch the movie, The Madness of King George.
Oh, it's such a good movie. It's such a good movie.
So apparently,
he had porphyria.
Porphyria, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Which isn't that the disease they kind of call vampirism or whatever?
So it's a really interesting.
It's a blood disease.
It is a blood disease. It's a disorder of
red blood cell proteins.
Right. It has a very, very, very broad range of manifestations.
Mm-hmm.
I actually have a friend who died because she ended up having liver failure from having porphyria. But until she developed failure, her symptoms were very mild. You can have the other extreme, which is someone like King George who's crazy from it.
Mm-hmm. So because all of my knowledge comes from TV, there's a great episode. There's a great episode of CSI.
I thought you were going to say House, but
well, and what's funny is it has the lady who has porphyria is in House. She's a main character in House.
Oh, how funny!
I can't remember her name right now. She's in Rosalie and Isles too. She plays Isles. Anyway, so she has porphyria and she's killing people because like there's like proteins in certain organs that like help save off the symptoms of porphyria. And the way that she's killing people is an attack dog because like, you know, bullets would contaminate the blood and like she has all kinds of reasons like why she's like training her dogs to attack people to kill them so she can eat their organs because she doesn't want to die of porphyria. And it's probably because she's crazy from the porphyria.
Nice.
So, yeah. So, so he had porphyria and, so he deteriorated into his symptoms, you know, towards the end. But before that, like, of course, as Americans, we see him as like the oppressor from overseas, you know,
right.
Because we no longer wanted to be ruled by a monarchy. He actually was a pretty good guy. So apparently a woman tried to stab him, tried to assassinate him. And, he had so much sympathy for her that instead of having her arrested, he had her committed to a hospital, which, I mean, hospitals for the criminally insane were probably not great, but it was probably a little better than prison, I would imagine. But he had sympathy for her. Like, it wasn't like, oh my God, she tried to kill me off with her head. So he had sympathy. He also would bathe in his kitchen so that his servants wouldn't have to bring hot water to a different building. And then, of course, you know, dispose of the water after that. So like he had sympathy for his servants in that, like, I can bathe in the kitchen, you know? And then he was a devoted father of 15.
Good Lord.
He loved to read. And after his death, out of his personal library, 65,000 books were donated to the British Library.
That's really cool.
Yes. He was into astronomy and he funded the astronomist and his wife.
Astronomer.
Astronomer. Thank you. Jeez. It's late. It's almost 10 o'clock here. He funded them, and they went on to, discover the planet Uranus.
Oh,
yeah.
Very cool.
Insert childish joke about Uranus.
I wasn't going to say a thing.
I was writing and I was like, should I put a joke in there? About King George finding your ass. Yeah, but
well,
yeah.
I highly recommend The Madness of King George. It is totally worth watching. In fact, maybe we should podcast that.
Maybe. I'll have to see what platform it's streaming on. I just, went through and ruthlessly cut some of my streaming services. Yeah.
I probably need to do the same, seeing as I never use them because I don't watch TV here.
Exactly. I was like, I don't watch Discovery Plus. I don't watch Paramount Plus. Like, I probably got it and was like, oh, I'll cancel it next month because I'm just watching this one thing on it and never canceled it. And so, like, I took a day the other day and went through and canceled a bunch of stuff. So I'll have to see where it's streaming. But yeah, that is all the notes that I got.
Well, I've got a little bit more than that. So I did want to comment on the Schuyler sisters. So the lyric that Angelica sings where she says, when I meet Thomas Jefferson, I must compel him to include women in the sequel. She's talking about the Declaration of Independence. I thought that was very timely considering everything we are going through as American women right now.
Right.
This movie, this musical still gave me chills. It still made me cry.
What scene specifically? Like
definitely when Philip dies and then when Eliza is singing about Hamilton after his death and just hearing the opening strains of the music, you know, just gives me chills. Let's see. What else do I have?
I had a tough time when the Reynolds pamphlet was released. Like, I think of, like, I don't know if you've ever watched The Good Wife. So they make the parallel of a bunch of politicians and, like, specifically Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton. They make the parallels of, like, the man standing up behind a podium with a bunch of reporters and he's admitting to his affair and blah, blah, blah. And of course his wife is just standing there, you know, like holding their hands, standing by their man, you know, and all that kind of stuff. And I was just like, nothing ever changes, does it? Like she had to stand by her man, even though like, and he willingly published this pamphlet to save his reputation. But in turn, it ruined the family.
Yeah. No, I agree. That was a difficult thing to swallow.
Yeah. That was the sad part for me. Like, not when anyone dies. Like, I was just like, oh, people are so selfish.
Well, I think he probably had to be selfish to be the person that he was.
I mean, he was brilliant.
Yeah.
He was brilliant and...
He was probably a bit of a narcissist.
I feel like if anybody kind of had the right to, like, he was a bastard and he was orphaned at a young age. And, you know, he was supposed to die poor in the streets. And, you know, he fought for everything that he got and he worked very, very hard for it. And, you know, like, I feel like that gives you some bragging rights, but, you know, it's always hard that, you know, nobody's perfect. Anyway.
He definitely was not. I found it interesting. I learned that Angelica was actually married when she met Hamilton.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either. I learned that when I was watching that interview and they talked to that historian who was part of the interview.
I heard, so there's conflicting information about the Schuyler family. There is a line in the beginning of the movie that talks about how, Angelica, they don't have any brothers, which wasn't true.
Interesting.
There were 15 children, 8 of whom survived to adulthood. There were 5 Schuyler sisters and there were 3 Schuyler brothers. And there is conflicting reports about why Angelica didn't marry Hamilton. And the one thing that, like, one of the things that I saw was because she was the oldest female and had no brothers, she was expected to marry wealthy, and Hamilton wasn't wealthy. so like there's just some weird conflicting reports out there about Angelica and her marriage. But apparently the guy she married, his name wasn't really his name. He was kind of on the run from creditors back in England.
Oh, God.
And he became basically a arms dealer in the United States. And he made a ton of money from there. So, yeah.
Well, according to that historian, she was married when she met Hamilton. So, and they talked a little bit about how Lin-Manuel Miranda played a little bit loose with some of the historical facts for artistic interest, basically.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of have to, because they weren't in the room where it happened.
Right.
So a weird fact was John Church, who was oh my God, I just blanked on her name. Eliza's sister. Angelica. I almost said Erica. The man that she married, John Church, quote unquote John Church, being an arms dealer, actually, weird fact, John Church dueled Aaron Burr 5 years before his brother-in-law, Alexander Hamilton, and lost his life.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So Burr shot Angelica's husband and killed him, and then shot Eliza's husband and killed him.
Wow.
Church also supplied Alexander and his son, Philip, the guns they would use in their own ill-fated duels.
Oh, wow.
That's one of the things, the historical thing, it's so interesting. I mean, all of these people ran in the same circles. So like, like the whole fact about it was Alexander Hamilton Jr. who did the divorce for Aaron Burr's wife, like there is so much base, like non-sexual incest. There's some sexual incest too, but like everybody was involved in everybody else's life. It is the greatest soap opera. I love it.
Anything else you want to say?
After Hamilton's death, Eliza found herself the single mother of 7 children, some very troubled. Philip's death deeply affected Angelica, the couple's eldest daughter, so named after her aunt, I guess. She suffered a mental breakdown and stopped speaking to anyone except the ghost of her older brother. She remained only intermittently lucid throughout her life, according to Chernow, the author of the source material.
Oh, how interesting.
So, all of their lives were just so interesting. Yeah. So,
I really am going to have to get through that Chernow book.
I need to purchase it with like my 6 built-up credits on Audible. And then make it through a book before I start that.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Right. Well, I don't think I have anything else to say. Except, oh my God, the sound held up. Knock on wood.
It did. And we tried to keep it at an hour. We're at an hour 30. So good for us. But we podcasted, so score 1 for us.
And we'll be back in about a month, probably a little less. And not sure what we'll be talking about next. Yeah. Yep. We have to do it before Rob and I leave for Belize.
So jealous. I'm going to Belize.
I'll let you know how it is. It'll be pretty cool.
Everyone needs that. Sam's the husband.
All right. Well, until next time, everybody just remember. Take it one dead day at a time.
Or we are the weirdos, mister.
That's right. We are the weirdos, mister. We forgot that. Yeah.
All right, everybody. Until next time. Bye.
Bye.